Happy morning, everyone. For those watching live and for those in the States, it is Monday morning. So if you are here, good for you for getting up and at it and doing something for your marriage this morning. Everyone's piling in right now. So we'll give it a couple of minutes for everyone to join and get situated. But I would love to know in the chat box where you are joining from in the country or across the world, so we can see where everyone is across America and all these fun places. Maybe it's not morning where you are, or maybe it's very early in the morning where you are. For me, I know my brain works earliest in the morning, so this should hopefully be a really good webinar, and we're going to get into the 4 reasons that your spouse fell in love with you that you probably didn't even realize were reasons that they did fall in love with you, and how you can make it happen again. So we have people joining us from Colorado, California, North Idaho, San Antonio, England, Chile. Ooh, Santiago, Chile. I almost studied abroad there when I was in college and then ended up getting married instead. So maybe one day we'll go back. We have Johannesburg, South Africa, the UK, Nashville, lovely. More in the UK, Wisconsin, Latvia. Ooh, a lot of people from overseas, probably because of the timing of it, made it a little better. More people from Nashville, South Africa, South Dakota, all over the world. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Good hour that we are joining together. I am really excited to jump into this topic with you guys, and I know you are excited too. The next question I want to ask you is, what is one word that you would describe for what you want for your marriage right now? So I don't want to prime this too much. I'll reword the question, or I'll say the question again. What is one word that you would use to describe what you currently want for your marriage right now? So maybe your word is you want peace. Maybe you want reconciliation. Maybe you want contentedness. Maybe you want joy or happiness. Maybe you want communication. What is the one word you would use? So I'm seeing a lot of reconciliation, togetherness, reconnect, reconcile, happy, healing, together, reconciliation. A ton of you are in the same boat. Friendship, peace, restoration, commitment, really great words. Really great words. And all words that I believe that, whether you realize it or not, are something that can guide you and give you a hope and a vision to keep you moving forward in your relationship. So all of these words, they keep piling in. I'm seeing a ton of reconciliations. One person said perfection. I hate to burst your bubble, but your relationship and your marriage is never going to be perfect. But maybe we can work towards it being better than it currently is now, which is absolutely something we can do. Hope, reconciliation, all great words. We're going to get into why these words matter in just a minute. But for those of you, if this is your first webinar, then please say that this is your first webinar. I would love to welcome you in the chat. If this is your second or third, maybe 5th or 10th webinar that you've been to at Marriage Helper, then you probably already know who I am. But for those of you who are new, my name is Kimberly Holmes. I'm the CEO of Marriage Helper. That MA beside my name stands for my master's in psychology that I have. I'm currently getting my PhD in psychology as well. And so that's a little bit about me. I am a wife to my husband, Rob. I am a mother to my 2 beautiful babies, Boomy and Arrow, my daughter and my son. I'm also a speaker. You've probably seen me on YouTube. You've probably seen Marriage Helper in any of these places like Good Morning America or The Today Show, Fox Business, Celebrity Parents, even in People Magazine. But what you're really wanting to know first is, what can I tell you that's going to make a difference in your relationship today? So let me start with this, and especially for all of the people commenting right now that are saying that this is your first webinar. First of all, welcome. And second of all, I want you to know that what I'm going to teach you over the next several minutes are going to be what you need to hear in your exact situation, because they are underlying principles that can lay the foundation to move any marriage situation forward with the goal of being saved. And that part is guaranteed. While I can't guarantee that these things will absolutely save your marriage, I do guarantee that these are the principles that work. And if anything works, then these principles will. Because you see, the reality of it and what we have found at Marriage Helper is that there is actually a process to falling in love. And it's called the love path. We have had the privilege over the past 20 years of existing with our workshops that we have, our online courses, and all of the things that we do, that over 250,000 people have gone through in some iteration. We have known through research that we have done, research that we have read, and experience that we've had with thousands of people, that there is a love path, an actual process to falling in love. And if you follow the process, then you can fall in love or fall in love again with your spouse, or hopefully encourage your spouse to fall in love again with you. But if you stop following the process, then you can fall out of love, whether you mean to or not. And the scary part of this is that the majority of people don't even realize that there's a process to falling in love. And so, of course, they stop following the process at some point in their relationship when things get stale, when life gets in the way, when things get busy, career makes you go separate ways, parenting, all of those things that come in and can distract you from staying on the love path with your spouse. When you stop following that process, then you can begin to fall out of love, whether you mean to or not. And while this might sound scary, it's actually a positive thing because I can teach you how to get back on the love path. But the whole process of falling in love actually starts with attraction. Now, if you have watched our YouTube or have heard me speak anytime, then you've probably heard me talk about this because it's one of the subjects I am most passionate about. And here's the reason why. Typically, when we first enter into a relationship, when we're dating someone or we're looking to date someone, then we know, whether consciously or subconsciously, that this is something that's true. We are typically attracted in one of four ways to a person that we end up dating. But as we continue to date that person and then figure out whether or not this is someone we want to get engaged to, someone we eventually want to marry, then this process of attraction continues to guide our decisions on whether or not we want to move closer to the person. So it's one thing to just see someone across a restaurant or a bar or a college campus and think that they are physically attractive, but it's a completely different thing to actually continue to be attracted to a person long enough that you want to know more about them, that you want to establish a relationship with them, which then moves you forward on the love path. The whole process starts with attraction. The whole process starts every day with attraction. No matter how long you have been married, it never stops being important for you to be the most attractive that you can be. First and foremost for you, but secondly, for your marriage, for your relationship, to keep that moving forward. And typically when we think of attraction, we think of just that physical part. Like I mentioned, you see someone, you're physically attracted to them. A lot of people call this quote unquote chemistry, but actually there are four aspects of attraction, with the physical part of attraction being one of the least important. You see, the truth is, at the beginning of the relationship, there were four ways that your spouse was attracted to you, and there were four ways that you were attracted to your spouse, whether you realize this or not. And the truth is that understanding the four reasons or the four ways that your spouse initially fell in love with you can give you a plan to follow. Because if you understand how it originally happened, it can at least give you a framework to go back to and a framework to start following now to get back to that part where your spouse can fall in love with you again. And there are the four areas of attraction. The first one being physical. So while I did say just a minute ago, physical is not the most important part of attraction, because for a long-lasting relationship, it is not the most important part of attraction. It is typically something that first grabs your attention. It is something that for the majority of people, there is something about the physical attributes of the person that you're married to when you first saw them and first started dating that you were attracted to. It might have been their build of their body. It may be their eyes. It might have been their smile. Whatever it was, there was some physical attribute about your spouse that you were attracted to. And the same about you to your spouse. There was something about you physically that your spouse was attracted to. But even if you were a supermodel or the fittest man on earth, if it was only physical attraction that your spouse was attracted to at first, then that's not going to be enough to actually continue the relationship. At least not enough to continue the relationship to where it can really develop over a period of time. Now, a lot of people hear this and kind of stop here. Actually, if you look at society, if you look at all of the things that companies try and sell us, so much of it is based on physical attraction. So much of it is based on you don't look good enough, you don't eat good enough, you need to lose weight, you need to have more energy. And while those things can be important, they can also be a distraction from focusing on the deeper parts of attraction that we can start not looking at, not focusing on when we spend all of our time focusing on the physical part of attraction. Now, again, I am not saying that we should not eat well, work out, and feel good about ourselves and our bodies. I believe that's important. I believe for me, the better I feel about myself physically and the better I feel physically just in my body, then the more excitement and energy and motivation I'm going to have to work on other areas of attraction. So a lot of it can start here, but what I'm trying to say is don't listen to just this part and say, I get it, I've heard it, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not muscular enough, because that's not the point here. Although that is what the world wants you to believe. And so then typically what ends up happening is you start chasing a body size, or you start chasing a number on a scale, or you start chasing some kind of a metric in your head that if you feel like if you were to achieve that, then you would be lovable, then your spouse would come back, then your marriage could be saved. And what I'm telling you is if that is what you're currently working on and that's what you currently believe, you're headed down an empty tunnel. There's nothing on the other side of that rainbow. There is no gold pot, because if you're only focusing on what the world is telling you is not good enough about you physically, then you are missing the majority of your purpose in life. You are missing the majority of what you could be focusing on in order to become the most attractive that you can be. Can doing these things help you to have the energy and focus to work on the other things? Yes, but don't put your self-worth in your looks, your weight, or how you eat, because it's never, ever going to give you that self-confidence that you're looking for. This is a helpful tool to get us started. This is not where the road to attraction ends, which leads us to the second part of attraction, the second reason your spouse fell in love with you, which is intellectual attraction. And basically what intellectual attraction says is this a person that I can talk to? Do we have enough in common in our lives that we can carry on conversation, that it's a person I want to come home to and have great conversations about my day? Is it a person where we have similar hobbies? Even if not everything is the same, do we share some kind of similar hobbies or similar interests so that we can talk about things other than work and kids? Now, this is that if we think of attraction kind of like an onion, which is ironic because onions are not what you eat when you want to be attractive to another person and you're going to be in close proximity to them. But if we think of attraction like an onion, that outer layer is that physical attraction. It's the one you're going to peel away. It's the one that goes away the quickest. It matters. It protects it, but it's not the biggest one. As you're peeling it back, getting closer to the center of that onion, the next step, the next thing that you start to learn about someone after you see them is you begin to talk to them. This is that intellectual attraction. And when you begin talking to them, you then will begin to realize, is this a person I enjoy talking to? I remember when my husband and I first started dating, we reconnected. We knew each other when we were children, but we reconnected over Facebook when we were in college together. And so I did see him first. I saw that profile picture on Facebook and it was attractive and he was physically attractive to me. But then we started talking. And as we were talking, I realized we both loved to travel. We both had similar interests. We both knew similar people. And those things gave us a foundation that was strong enough that I wanted to continue the relationship. I wanted to continue to go down that path to see if there could be more there. Well, that same premise doesn't stop being important after we get married. In fact, it becomes more important that I am in a relationship with someone who I love to have a conversation with, because this is supposed to be my partner. This is supposed to be the person that I do life with. This is supposed to be my best friend, my significant other. So it becomes even more important that we continue to have that emotional connection over the life of our marriage. But what can happen in this intellectual attraction is after we get married, we stop talking. We stop sharing similar interests. We start going our separate ways to where we have less in common. We have less to talk about. My husband could end up getting different hobbies, different interests than when we first got married. And if I'm not continuing to ask him about those things, learn about them myself so that we have something to talk about, then we could continue to drift further and further apart. So intellectual attraction continues to connect us on that intellectual level where we can have conversation together. We want to talk to each other. And all of that is important. But it builds up to that third layer, that third reason that your spouse fell in love with you, which is emotional attraction. And when it comes to a relationship, when it comes to your marriage, emotional attraction is the most important part of attraction. Because emotional attraction asks the question, do I evoke emotions within this person that they enjoy feeling? Now, up until now, maybe you've been able to answer some of these questions. When we talk about physical attraction, maybe you already know, there's a couple of things I could do to be more physically attractive. I could start going on walks. I could start going to a yoga class, or, eating a little bit cleaner, taking soda out of my diet. You may already know a couple of things you need to do, and you get it, and you just need to do it. You just need to find the motivation to do it. When I talked about intellectual attraction, you probably thought of some things too here. You probably thought, yes, I realize where we disconnected. We used to love kayaking together. We used to love reading the newspaper every morning together. We used to have a favorite TV show that we would watch together every night. But over time, those things stopped happening. We started to have less to talk about. And it started to become to where we were only talking about the mortgage or the taxes or the kids and things that were just not super exciting or interesting to talk about. So maybe you already know with these two some things that you could start doing. With emotional attraction, the question that you need to ask yourself here, which is vital to the future of your relationship, is, am I doing things that evoke positive emotions within my spouse? Or am I doing things that are evoking negative emotions within my spouse? When I think back to when my husband and I were dating, there were a ton of things that he would do and that I would do towards him that evoked positive emotions. He would send me flowers out of nowhere. We had a long distance relationship. And I remember every time I would go to visit him and at the guest bedroom at the house he lived in, there was always new flowers. There was always a vase of roses, these beautiful roses. They were called painted roses. They looked like zebra striped. But anyway, he opened every single door for me. My car door, the house door, the restaurant door, the movie theater door, every door. And I didn't need those things. But how do you think I felt when he would do those things for me? He was also the first person that I dated who actually paid for me when we went out on dates, every time we went on dates. And so all of those things, because we started dating in college, and so all of those things said to me, I'm important to him. I matter to him. And I would do things like that back towards him. I would call him when I knew he was a pilot. He was in flight school when we were dating. I would send him text messages when I knew he was flying, telling him to stay safe and that I loved him. I would call him every single night before we went to bed. I would send him a positive text message every single morning when we woke up. So these were the things that we did for each other and towards each other that evoked positive emotions in our relationship. But here's what ended up happening. After we got married, then the positive things that we do start to fade away. This didn't just happen in my marriage. It's typical in a lot of marriages because now you start to see more of the flaws of the person. And so now instead of everything being roses and unicorns and rainbows and fireworks, it's, oh, that annoys me. Oh, you need to stop doing that. Oh, No. And maybe you start trying to tell them what they can and cannot spend money on. Maybe you start trying to tell them who you do and don't want them to see. Maybe you start not talking to them as much, not sending those nice text messages, not saying goodbye before they leave in the morning, not greeting them in a warm way when they come home after work, for either gender. I'm not just talking about women towards men. I'm talking about on both sides. Maybe you stopped listening to each other. Maybe you stopped having date night. Maybe you stopped doing the things that would actually evoke positive emotions towards each other, with each other. And this is the key of attraction in a long-term relationship, because you're not going to want to be around a person when you don't like how they make you feel. And sometimes it can look like this. I had a friend who several years ago was dating a guy. They started dating in the spring. And then when summer came around, they started going to the beach together, the pool together. And he started saying things to her like, you would look so much better in that swimsuit if you would lose 10 to 15 pounds. How do you think that made her feel? I can tell you it did not evoke a positive emotion within her. And you might have had your jaw drop just like I did when she first told me that story, when I just said it to you. But the reality of it is, how many times do we say things like that, or have we said things like that to our spouse and we didn't think anything about it? How many times have we said, you would really make me be happier as a husband or a wife if you would just pick up the amount of chores that you would do, or you would really do better in your life if you were to move jobs to where you could make more money, or maybe you do need to lose a couple of pounds. The thing is, what your spouse hears if you say things like that is, if you want me to love you, here's what you need to change. And it does not evoke emotions within your spouse that they enjoy feeling. Now, so many of you have already asked in the comments and said, but what do I do if they're not talking to me? What can I do if there's no way to show? What do I do? And I'm going to get to that, but I'm taking you back for a minute because I want you to understand part of the reasons to why you have probably gotten to where you are today, because one or both of you have stopped focusing on the things that evoke positive emotions within each other. Likely your spouse is currently doing this towards you, but I'm not talking to your spouse. Your spouse isn't here. I'm talking to you. And none of us are perfect. I can tell you, even to this day, this is something I have to constantly check myself on, constantly ask myself, am I doing things that are evoking positive emotions within my husband? Because if I'm not, then I'm pushing him away. This is something you really need to be honest with yourself about. What is it that you have done that has possibly evoked negative emotions in your spouse that have pushed him away? And what is it that you can start doing now that can start to build those positive emotions? The fourth and final part of attraction that we need to be aware of is what we call spiritual attraction. And while this is not necessarily religious, it does have to do with beliefs and values. And the way that I like to explain this is we're getting deeper into that level of the onion, right? Your spiritual attraction is the core of who you are. It is what you are passionate about. It is what makes you angry. It is what you love to do. These are your strongest beliefs and values. And the reason that this matters in attraction is that when we see someone who we believe has a high level of beliefs and values and lives in line with those beliefs and values, so it doesn't just say it and then not live it, but actually walks the walk and talks the talk, then we find that attractive. We want to be around people who we perceive as being better than us because it helps us be better. So with spiritual attraction, the question here is, are you living in line with your beliefs and values? And do you have similar beliefs and values with the person that you are with? Typically when we are dating, we are most attracted to people who have similar beliefs and values as we do, because there are things that are important to us. They are the things that drive us, that we are passionate about. And so it is more likely that we are going to match ourselves for life with someone who has those similar beliefs and values. Now here, I typically get the question, but what if? So what if right now my husband or my wife has completely changed their beliefs and values? And when your marriage is going through a crisis, that is something that is normal. But here's what I want to encourage you with. Even if your spouse is going through a season right now where they have completely changed their beliefs and values, they're doing things that they never thought they would do, that you never thought they would do. They're acting in ways that you feel like this isn't them. This is not the person I married. Well, then here's the key takeaway for you. That does not give you permission to change your beliefs and values. So many times I have people ask me, well, if my spouse is having an affair or if my spouse is gone, then can I start dating now? Or can I have a revenge affair? Why not? Why can't I do that? My answer to that person is because you're better than that. We don't need to sink down to having revenge affairs or doing things that go completely out of line of our beliefs and values, even though our spouse is doing that, because we will resent ourselves for it over time. You won't love the way that you acted in a week, a month, or even a year from now. Continue to live in line with your beliefs and values, because additionally, you do it first and foremost for you, because it is the right and the best thing that you can do for you. But the second reason you do it is because if anything is going to work to bring your spouse back, then this will. Continuing to live in line with your beliefs and values, being the person that you say that you are, doing the things that you have always said that you're going to do, then that gives you a character and a reputation that your spouse can't come back and say, but then you did this. You ended up having a revenge affair as well. So we can't make this work. Be the person you say you are. Live in line with your beliefs and values, and you will not regret those actions. These 4 areas of attraction we call the pies: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And the best thing that you can do right now is to start working on your pies, because it is the best thing to do for you. Someone just asked a question. So I make him love me again by working on myself? Great question. The answer is you cannot make someone love you. And if you go into working on your pies with the sole focus of I'm doing this so that my spouse will fall in love with me again, then it's the wrong reason. You might be saying, but Kimberly, you just spent 20 minutes explaining to me what these pies are and why it's so important for my relationship, and now you're telling me to not do it for my relationship? That's exactly right. And here's why. Because if you only start working on yourself and your end goal is to bring your spouse back, that is your focus, that's your vision, then when your spouse moves further away, or when your spouse does something that you perceive isn't working to actually bring them back to you, then you're going to say, this doesn't work. Working on my pies doesn't work. And you're going to jump ship. You're going to end the marathon. You're going to stop trying. And where is that going to leave you? No better than where you are now. Because the actual reason, the real reason that I encourage you to work on yourself, no matter what your spouse ends up doing, whether they come back, whether they leave, whether you end up, God forbid, divorcing, which I do not want to happen, and that's not the goal of why Marriage Helper exists. But even if that is to happen, the best thing that you can do is to work on becoming the best you can be, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually, because it is the best thing for you. For you. It is what will regain your self-esteem, regain your confidence. It is what will give you purpose. It's what will give you direction. It's what will take your depression away. It is what will decrease your anxiety. It's what will calm the chaos in your life and give you peace when you begin to become the best you can be, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually, because it is the best thing for you. The secondary reason is because if anything works to bring your spouse back and restore your relationship, then this will. So you don't do it for your relationship. You don't do it for your spouse. You don't do it just to save your marriage. You do it first and foremost for you, because you cannot control what your spouse ends up doing. You cannot control their actions, their behaviors, or their choices. They have something what's called free will, but you do have control over one person, and that's you. You do get to choose how you're going to act, how you're going to react, how you're going to behave, what you're going to do to become the best that you can be on a daily basis. And working on your pies is the best thing that you can do for that. It's the best thing that you can do. I believe in this so much because when, as I've mentioned before, when my husband and I first got married, I have said it many times, our first year of marriage, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, were not the honeymoon that we had been so blindly deceived to believe that it would be, but it was more like a living hell. We had to realize how we were supposed to live with each other and figure this out when we were putting two very strong, very stubborn personalities together and trying to figure out how to make this work. And for the first several years of my marriage, I was very focused on what he needed to do to change. I believed that my happiness and my joy came from my husband and how our relationship was and how happy he was making me feel in any given moment. And so therefore, in my mind, I had a list of if he would just change all of these things, then our marriage would be better. Then I would be happy. Then everything would be good. What I was failing to see was that I had a laundry list long of things that I needed to do to change that I wasn't even considering looking at. And it wasn't in my marriage until I got to the point where I had to realize if I want something to change, I have to change myself. I have to stop looking at the speck in my husband's eye and take the log out of my own eye and really look inward and see what do I need to do to become the best I can be for me, to where I'm not putting my value, my self-worth, and my confidence into the status of my marriage, but I'm becoming the best that I can be and controlling only the things that I can control, which are my pies. So for me, I started working out. I started eating healthier. I started getting my energy back because I had lost all my energy. I was depressed. I was on antidepressants. I had no motivation to do anything. I was sleeping until 9 a.m. Which was for me late. I was doing a bunch of things where I just had no energy. And I said, I've got to get my focus back. I've got to get at least to a place where I want to get out of bed on a daily basis. And then intellectually, I said, what can I start doing in order to expand my mind and also to get me focused on something other than my marriage? What kind of hobby can I have? What kind of book can I read? And so I started reading more. I started hanging out with friends. I started learning how to do different things. I would go out with a group of girls to go paint. I would take some classes online. I tried to learn German. I tried to do things to not only just occupy my mind away from what was going on in my marriage, but also to make me a more interesting person, a better person. And then emotionally, I had to ask myself, what have I been doing that is evoking negative emotions within my husband? And the answer was probably being very manipulative, whining, crying when he would come home from work, when I was trying to want something from him, trying to guilt him into it. I don't think he was enjoying how he felt when I was doing those things. So I said, how can I begin to evoke positive emotions within him? And some of you are asking yourself this question right now, considering that your spouse may not be with you. There are things where that are foundational things you can do to evoke positive emotions in your relationship and with your spouse. Being nice to them, being kind, When they tell you hard things, not sharing that with other people, not attacking them when they share something with you that's difficult to share, but instead being a safe place, listening to them, thanking them when they share difficult things with you. These are some foundational things that we can begin doing. But then it can go even further than that, where when you have interactions with them, it's pleasant. You're not constantly trying to berate them. You're not constantly trying to do push behaviors where you're calling them all the time, texting them, telling them how lonely you are, telling them how you can't believe they've left, telling them how you can't believe they haven't talked to the kids. Those things are not going to evoke positive emotions. So what can you begin doing now that will evoke positive emotions in your spouse? This is also why I teach Smart Contact. In what I teach with Smart Contact, it puts a foundation and framework in place that is most likely to evoke positive emotions, because you stop doing the things that are going to push your spouse away and you begin laying the foundation for positive interaction to happen. If you want to learn more about Smart Contact, there's a couple of videos on YouTube, but the best thing you can do is get our Smart Contact toolkit that explains all of it. But the best thing that you can do, if you really want to understand how all of these things works, especially the emotional part of attraction, is what we teach inside of our Save My Marriage course, because we give you a 10-week long framework and plan for you to follow to increase the positive interactions you have in your relationship, understand the things that have gone wrong and learn how to change them, and begin to see change in yourself with the goal of seeing change in your relationship. All of those things are important. And then with spiritual attraction, do live in line with your beliefs and values. Don't let your current circumstances knock you off base or try and tempt you into becoming a person that you don't want to be. These are all the best things that you can do for you. And you do it first and foremost for you. I saw change first in myself when I began working on the pies. And then secondly, after a long period of time, I began to see change in my relationship. The change in my relationship came from me changing. Sometimes the biggest shift that we can make in our life is a shift in our own perspective. So many of us right now, so many of you, I am sure, are in a place where you're saying, I don't know what to do. There's no hope. Everything's gone. Everything's wrong. Here are all of the reasons that I can't work on my marriage. Here are all of the reasons that pies don't work for me. Here are all of the reasons that Smart Contact's not working. Here are all of the reasons that my situation is unique and I'm not even going to try to do any of these things because it's just not going to work. And I understand that you feel defeated and that you feel hopeless. But change is not going to happen and can't happen unless it begins to happen within yourself. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, when are you going to start doing things differently? Not just listening to a podcast or listening to a YouTube video, but implementing real change in your life. Stop focusing on your spouse. Stop focusing on the things that are going wrong, because it's not going to change anything. Start doing something that is going to make you better by working on your pies. I believe it is the best thing that you can do. And I believe this because it not only made a huge change in my life and in my marriage and in my relationship, but it has made the change in thousands of people's lives. Some of you are asking, what if my spouse is still in the house with me? Is doing something like the Save My Marriage course still helpful? And the answer is yes. Whether you're separated, divorced, divorce is on the table, there's a divorce in process, whether you have kids or don't have kids, what we teach inside of the Save My Marriage course gives you a framework to follow, to understand what has happened and what you can do to change the trajectory of your relationship. And even if it doesn't end up changing the trajectory of your relationship because your spouse does have free will, then you know you have done what it takes, everything that it takes to save your marriage. And I promise you that in the process of you doing that, you will find peace, you will find your confidence, you will regain your self-esteem, you will understand how to have better relationships going forward. All of those things will happen when you start making the changes that we explain and give in the Save My Marriage course. So some of you, one question that's come up is, I've just finished Smart Contact and I'm starting my pies. What does it mean when she says that she still loves you, but she's just disconnected? I love the questions when people ask, what does it mean when they say this? There are a ton of things that your spouse could mean by that. And actually inside the Save My Marriage course, we have a whole section on that we call the reason behind the statement. So if your spouse has said this, here are some possible things that it could mean. And we give you some action items that you can actually work on to understand what they mean. But what I would say is, don't let what your spouse says distract you from continuing to do what you know you need to do. Because it's very easy in a situation like this, for the person who asked this question, that you've been working Smart Contact, you're seeing change happen in your communication, you begin working on your pies, you're seeing positive change happen, then you see your spouse say something like this and you start to get hope. And then the next day, your spouse might have a bad day and say something mean to you. And then you say, see, none of it works. But in actuality, it's working. You are becoming a better you. Your spouses begin to see change. Don't let one day, 1 week, even one bad month take you off track of doing the things that are making positive change within yourself. You've got to let this become part of who you are. Another question someone asked is, how do I rebuild trust with my wife? And that's another great question, which can have a ton of reasons behind it. And this is a great question. Inside the Save My Marriage course, we actually have support calls. And so one night a week, every single week, our marriage helper coaches lead a group support call where you can type in your questions and they will answer them. And so they're able to get into more depth on this on a weekly basis than I can right now. But one of the best ways you can rebuild trust as a general rule is to be consistent in showing that you're trustworthy. Whether you did something that broke trust in your relationship, or whether she doesn't trust that you're actually going to change, because I believe a man asked this question. So no matter which one of those it is, the best way you can rebuild trust is by being consistent in being trustworthy. If it's change that your spouse is looking for, show the change every day. Don't just change for a short period of time in order to get your spouse back. Make the change within you, within your heart, within who you are as a person. That is going to be what builds trust. Some other questions that have come up is, what can you do if they don't want to save this and it's been 2 years? Well, what I believe you can do, and the best thing that you can do, is to join the Save My Marriage course. Because what we did was we created the Save My Marriage course for people just like you. We give you the roadmap. We give you what you need to start doing to move forward in your own life, but also in your relationship. And at the very end of the Save My Marriage course, we even have a section on how to know when to move on and how to do it, if you get to that point. However, we've had thousands of people go through the course. It's worked for so many people, and we've seen amazing change in people's lives. Another question that has come through is, but what if my spouse doesn't want to talk to me? If right now your husband or your wife does not want to talk to you, then it is probably because there has been some kind of negative communication or some kind of negative event that your spouse had, that your marriage has encountered, and your spouse is saying, I need a break. I don't want to talk to you right now. And it goes right back to that rebuilding trust. You have to rebuild the trust for your communication in your marriage as well. This is what Smart Contact teaches. This is what we teach. The best way that you can do that is first by stopping the things that are destroying your communication and your relationship, like the push behaviors, the whining, the begging, the crying, the manipulating, ignoring your spouse, stonewalling. starting unnecessary fights, trying to control them. All of those things are things you need to stop doing. And then you need to start doing the things that build love, starting with attraction. It starts with attraction. Start with working on becoming the best you can be physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. First of all, it's going to give you focus. Second of all, if anything works to help bring your marriage back together, this will. But that is secondary to the primary reason to work on your pies, which is to become the best you that you can be. That is the number one reason. And so many of you are asking different questions now saying, but what if this? All of you are saying, but what if? As I've been talking, all of you in your mind, I know you have a but what if? But what if this? What if that? And here's why. You're already telling me, here's why it's not going to work for me. You already have a defeated mentality. And I want to encourage you to change that. And instead, I want you to think back to everything we've talked about over the past 45 minutes and say to yourself, but what if this does work? But how can this work for me? But what if I did do this and change did happen? What if it did work? I know it works. And the people that we have seen come through our Save My Marriage course, we have had so many people say, for the first time, I face the future with hope. I literally feel like I tried everything and nothing worked until this did. It just made sense. This has been a lifesaver for me. So many people are saying pies work, smart contact works, the Save My Marriage program works. All of this has worked. My husband came over today and he wants us to reconcile. There is hope. And I know you're tired, and I know you're stuck, and I know you're scared, and I know you don't know what to do next. But if anything, the first thing I want you to do is to believe that change can happen and believe that you can begin doing things to make change happen within yourself first and within your marriage second. I would also love for you to join our Save My Marriage course, which tomorrow the doors are closing. We are starting our 10 weeks of group support calls tomorrow night. And so this is your last chance. Tomorrow is your last chance to purchase and join and become a member of our Save My Marriage course. It will give you just the feel-good feeling that you have done everything that you can do to make your marriage work, if nothing else. But what actually is going to happen is you're going to learn so much about your spouse, so much about yourself, so much about your relationship that you are going to see change happen. You're going to learn how to implement boundaries. We talk about how to implement boundaries in the Save My Marriage course. You're going to get an invitation to a private Facebook group of other people in your situation. You're going to be invited to a special group support call with Dr. Joe Beam that's happening this Thursday, November 19th. And when we close this course and it's done, which it's closing tomorrow, when we relaunch the Save My Marriage course in January, it's going to be a brand new course, and you're going to have access to the new course for free, and the current course, you get to keep that as well. All of that for free. You're getting 2 courses for the price of 1, and it is the best option available for learning and understanding how to save your marriage. I believe this. I believe it's better than counseling. I was trained as a marriage and family therapist. The movement that happens over the cost of 3 coaching or the cost of 3 counseling or therapy sessions is not even comparable to what change you're going to see happen for the same price with our Save My Marriage course. So the Save My Marriage course is basically the cost of 3 therapy sessions. And this is, you get so much more. You get 10 weeks. You get a free upgrade to the new course in January. You get the weekly support calls with the Marriage Helper coaches. You get the special VIP support call with Dr. Joe Beam. All of those people, or all of this is going to be included in what you get in the Save My Marriage course, because we are with you for the long haul. We are with you for the journey. We understand that there's not going to be major change that happens in your marriage over a 3-week period. It's going to be major change that happens over a 3-month period, a 6-month period, a 9-month period. And so we have developed what you need to know to make a difference in your marriage to see that change happen over a period of time. Someone said, it's only me who wants to work on our marriage. So is this course for me? Yes, this course is exactly for the one person who wants to work on the marriage. That is why we created it. It's not something for you and your spouse to do together. It's not something for that you have to show up live every single week. The support calls are live, but the actual material, the videos that go with it, you can do at your own pace. You can do it over the period of 10 weeks. You can do it over the period of 4 weeks or 3 weeks. However long or short you want to go through it, you have access to it. It is completely different from the couples workshop because this is only for one spouse. It's an online course. You go through it at your own pace. It's something completely different than our online live workshops. This is very different. One person said, I'll be divorced by then. Divorce is not something that we want to happen at all. It does. And for many of us, we're in situations where we can't stop it, either because of the state we live in or the laws of how it does in our state. All of that can make a difference. Here's the encouragement I want to give you. Divorce doesn't have to be the end of a marriage. I will say it again. Divorce does not have to be the end of a marriage. I know this and I believe this wholeheartedly because I am the product of a family that divorced. My dad divorced my mom. They were divorced for 3 years. 3 years before, and I wasn't even born yet. So back in the 1980s, my dad divorced my mom for 3 years. He came back, asked her to marry him again, not because he was still in love with her, but because he knew and she knew it was the right thing to do and that they wanted to give it another shot. My mom took him back. After that remarriage, they ended up having me. I am the product of 2 people who divorced and got remarried. And I believe that that is absolutely possible for your marriage as well. Divorce isn't something any of us want, but it doesn't have to be the end. We should still continue to become the best we can be, no matter what. Another thing I believe is that you can do this. Whether or not you end up joining the Save My Marriage course, which I believe is the best thing that you can do in order to learn what you can do to save your marriage. No matter what, you can do this. You can find the strength. You can find the motivation to make change in your life, to become the best you can be. And if anything works to save your marriage, then working on your pies, focusing on doing the things that are going to rebuild love in your relationship, following what we call the love path, which I didn't even get into the rest of it, but following the love path can make the change you're looking for in your marriage. But I believe your marriage can be saved. And I have seen it happen for thousands of people who are in situations like yours, where you're saying, I have no hope. Here's all the reasons it can't work. Here's all the reasons it shouldn't work. But the truth is, it can still work. I have seen those situations saved. I've seen those marriages saved. I believe that there is hope. Your marriage can be saved. What we teach you in the Save My Marriage course can teach you how. I'm so thankful that all of you have joined me today. I hope that this has given you practical tools that you can use no matter what you choose to do, no matter what life looks like from this point going forward. The main thing I want you to take away from this is that the best thing that you can start doing for yourself right now is to become the best you can be, to work on your pies, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Work on becoming the best you can be. It will give you focus. It will increase your self-esteem. It will increase your self-confidence. It will help give you a vision of things that can happen, and realize that the byproduct of that is that if anything works to save your marriage, then this will. This is not the full process. This is not the full plan, but it is one thing that you can begin doing right now, today, no matter where you are, no matter what your financial situation is, no matter where you live in the world. You can do something today to begin working on your pies. And if you want the more in-depth guidance, the bigger framework to go through and guide through to understand how to change your interactions, your reactions, and the relationship that you have with your spouse, for that full framework, that is something that we can teach you inside the 10-week-long program of the Save My Marriage course. And I would love to see all of you in it tomorrow when the doors close. And we'll have our first group support call tomorrow night. I hope you have an amazing rest of your Monday, having a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you inside the Save My Marriage course.